Just now going to introduce today's speaker, who is Peter Beeper from Kanda. So just before we start our 20-minute talk, Peter, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me, by the way. Well, I flew over from Denmark. I live there, small country in the north. I work with learning and training in immersive tech, and also not immersive tech like AR, which we're going to talk about now. So I am a total nerd when it comes to what works and what doesn't work with the brain and learning and training in these technologies.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start here because I'm not sure where you guys are when it comes to these things. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about and show you what AR and VR is, and do a little bit of a presentation of some research from some real people doing real stuff. Of how this works and why it works.
Yeah. And last question, why do you think it's so important to the OGTC?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. Now, I think these technologies can seem a little bit far from everyday life in companies, right? So it's maybe you guys have a feeling that this is very expensive or difficult to do. So I think it's important to show you guys some examples from real life where these technologies have been implemented and has made a real business difference, right? So I think that's why it's important.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, your 20 minutes are on the clock, Peter. Are you ready to start?
Yes, okay.
Good. Thank you.
Great. I had 15 screens here, so I had to do a presentation that fit, right? So I spent far too long on this presentation, but you'll see. So yeah, this is me. That worked. Right. So we'll go into AR and some AR use cases, and VR use cases. I'll get into what it is. I hope we don't spend too much time on this, so we can get to this exciting part, that's the research and how you design that kind of stuff, right? If you got any questions, just please let me know, and we'll get to that as well. But yep. So this is why text does not work very well in slides. You guys will probably read some of this and you won't remember anyway. But augmented reality, and I'll show you now, is where you've got the real world and then you've got a digital layer in the real world. So you can see what you're doing and then there's something popping up, right? So these are the things that we use for AR. You've got your mobile phone. Some of you might know this from the IKEA app where you can place furniture in your home, right? So you can actually use your own mobile phone and have AR here, augmented reality right here. Microsoft has done the HoloLens, which is a headset you put on. This one actually is the one. So you put that on, and somebody wants to try it? Nobody says yes. Give it a try. You can put on the helmet there, and I'll just turn it on right there. Yeah, it'll probably work. Otherwise, just get the feel of it. So you've got that on the oil rig or on sea, and you'll get a visual layer on top of your own reality, right? And you can build that into a hard hat that's X-proof, so you can take it on the rig, you can take it into hard conditions and actually work with it. And I'll show an example of how that works. We've also got some sunglasses over here. When you've got a small field of view, but you wear it and you can work with it as well. And this one is with your own phone that you put inside the headset, and then you can do remote support. So AR is when you've got the real life in front of you through the glasses and then a virtual layer popping up, so you can do assembly stuff or you can be guided to some stuff while you work, okay? So going into the use case of AR, this is a video of a person, and there's no sound deliberately. This is a person doing an inspection on a Maersk oil rig. So he's being guided to the places he's going to inspect, and then the points will come up, and he will open them up with his eyes, his gaze, and then he'll do the inspection of all these things that has to be inspected on an oil rig. There's heaps of things to inspect on an oil rig, right? So this guides him around so that he doesn't have to know where he's going. And all the documentation in the inspection will be done while he is inspecting with the glasses. So he can speak to the headset, it'll record it, and it'll make it into text. So all the documentation will go straight back into the database, and that he doesn't have to go home and write stuff and do stuff afterwards. He can just do it on the fly. That makes a huge business case and a huge difference. And you and I could go out and do these inspections. We don't have to be very qualified. So that's a real use of how you can do AR. We are also working on this, where Siemens in renewables, sorry about that, but they want to find the stickers in the wind turbine, locate where they are, and make sure they're signed. Okay? It sounds like a simple thing, but it's an easy win for them, where you can apply this technology really easy, and then actually do it themselves. So they will be walking around with the mobile phone inside the wind turbine, scanning the environment, placing the stickers where the stickers are, placing spots themselves, and then when the quality inspector, the QI, will come into the turbine, he'll pick up his phone and he'll be guided to the stickers, taking pictures, and the machine learning in the AR will then recognize if they're signed correctly, and then the inspection is totally automized. Right? That's another example of how we can get AR out living with you guys in the companies, not being reliant on companies like us to edit stuff. So you've got a platform, a backend, where you can access and you can edit all these points yourself. You can add points, you can take them away. So you've got a tool that you can actually deploy and use right there. These are easy wins when it comes to AR. Yeah, so that's the augmented part of things. These things are ready. These things are ready to deploy in your companies, and you can use them right now. It doesn't take a lot. And when it comes to budgets, because that's always the question, the first question, right? You guys think this is probably very expensive. It's not. We're talking budgets around 15,000, maybe 20,000 pounds at the most for a working software. Yeah, not very expensive. Okay. So then we go into the VR stuff. How many of you guys have tried VR before? Right, that's a lot. That's actually pretty cool. How did you find it? Was it cool? Yeah. Do you use it often, frequently, or is it something that you tried once or twice and then even if you have a headset, don't use it that much? That's often what we see is a company buys these kind of things and then they're on a shelf somewhere, or for someone to take it through a stakeholder nightmare or something like that. Trying to implement these technologies is really, really difficult. It has a shiny effect, right? But it takes a lot of effort to get it in there. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But virtual reality is where you're totally immersed. So this means that you cannot see anything and you look like a moron. I'm sorry, sir. Not deliberately on you, but this is. You look great, by the way. So yeah, you'll need this as well. It might have some sound on it, but you can explore space or whatnot. I'll give you the controller in your hand there. There you go. So you're totally immersed into another universe. And this is where it gets great for me, because I, with my learning and training experiences, can take you guys to a different place, and I can manipulate with your brains directly. I'll show you why I can manipulate with you and what the technique is later. But this is just to get you up to speed on what we've got. So we've got the Vive Pro, which is from HTC, and there's other headsets as well. This has a high resolution. What you need to know when it gets a little bit nerdy here is that there's a frame rate. On your TV, it'll be around 24 to 30 hertz or frames per second. If you look at that screen down there, that'll probably be the frame rate, the frames that are passing by. In the headset, you need at least 90 if you don't want to throw up at some point. You can go lower if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend it. Then you've got the standalone headset that's coming. This has disadvantages because it's cabled. So you've got that cable. And upstairs later I'll show you how that is and you can try it out. But there's limitations to that, right? You can't move freely. This one changes that. So then now no more cable. It's got tracking that it knows where it is. It's in the headset. Then there's something called degrees of freedom. That means that in that headset you have there, sir, is an Oculus Go. It's got 3 degrees of freedom, right? These two headsets has 6 degrees of freedom. That means that if you've got 6 degrees of freedom, you can move around. That makes all the difference, ladies and gentlemen. It makes all the difference. That headset is great for videos. So you've got here something where you can only just turn around and roll your head and look, right? So you're standing still. That means if somebody makes a video where you're moving, you will get motion sick, or probably get motion sick. You at least get a little bit dizzy. That means that most of the experiences in this headset will keep you sitting down. That makes me sad. My managing director is going to kill me for saying this on video, okay? But I'm going out on a limb here. Headset is great for video. Onboarding stuff, if you want to do it immersively, fine. But VR is a technology that is perfect for interacting with your environment, for picking stuff up, for throwing things, right? We did a VR experience in a wind turbine where you had seagulls. And the first thing people did was walk to the seagull, pick it up, and throw it away. And why? Because they could. It's because you can. You enter a different universe where you can fail. You can do things wrong. You can burn yourself. You can die at no cost. That makes a hell of a lot of a difference. So if you do VR for training and learning, where interactions and the experience, procedural stuff, all that, I'll come back to that, use it for the right headset. So that's very important to have context in mind if you want to do VR. Okay? Yeah. Done that. I'll show you a few cases on how that looks. You can try this upstairs. You probably also feel a little bit motion sick from watching this video even. But yeah, what you do here is you have interactions. You open up, you put it on, you do this. This is a procedural test you can train. Please come upstairs and try it. It's cool. And there's a timer on there. I think, David, you were 3 minutes and 5 seconds today. Yeah. So that's the record of the day. That's somewhat really good, maybe. But this is a 50,000-pound thing that has a budget, and you assemble a full setup. That's VR. Take you to the desert, and you can hear it, right? And then assemble the setup. Yes. And then there's another example here, which is in a wind turbine. This is where it gets interesting for some of the people with business hats on, right? They have saved 70 to 80%, I have it on video, they've saved 70 to 80% of their training setup, just reducing cost of not doing training, pulling training onshore, and not interfering with production while training. So they can actually go into a wind turbine now and train, and this is a collaborative thing, so they can go 3 people in here. 3 people at a time, at least, and then train the assembly procedure in a wind turbine. They don't have to use a real turbine, which is freaking expensive, and put it on shore and train in it, and the wear and the tear on the equipment. No, we can do it all virtually, right? This is an 18-hour collaborative exercise that we put in VR, and that cost them about 70, 80,000 pounds. And they've saved, that business case was already saved 3 weeks into the launch and implementation of this. So find the right business case, find the right context, and then you can actually make some pretty big business cases as well. Pretty neat. Yep. Here comes the exciting part. Right. So this is a guy who is operating a table from a distance, and his hand is just prolonged in virtual reality. This is actually augmented reality, right? Because you can see what you're doing in real life at the same time. But this means that he doesn't mind operating something that he clearly cannot reach in real life, right? He can't reach that table, but he does in VR, and he operates it totally. So he accepts that this is part of him. That is called body ownership. And this is the first step of this, me taking you into the world of how we can mind fuck you guys, or we can, at least we can mingle with your, manipulate with your mind in virtual reality. Make you believe that this is real. You might think, because you're very smart, and Daniel Kahneman says a lot about this, about biases and all, you think that you know what's real, right? That's cool. But actually you don't, because your brain believes everything you see, and you don't consciously know. This is what research shows us. So this is interesting. And here's another video. This I tried, and it blew my mind. Just look at the hands. You imagine you have your hands in front of you. The brain believes it's your own hands, and then this happens. Could have gone from black to white, doesn't matter. But it changes your skin color. I can still feel it. I can still feel how, I believed it. It might not seem very, I guess very proactive. It might not seem big to you, but it is to me, because I've tried it. My brain believed that I was a black person. Imagine that. Or somebody going from black to white. Doesn't matter. The brain believes it. And actually, going back to that, this is very, very interesting, because they did some research on if people were more or less racially biased afterwards. So they showed them pictures of people coming at them looking like they had a gun. You couldn't really see it from a distance. And then people had to answer, do you think that person has a gun or do you not? And there was different skin colors. You could see that, right? You get the picture of it. So if you tried changing your skin color, you would be less biased. You would say that guy does not have a gun. If you haven't tried that, you'd be more leaning into saying, I think that guy has a gun, based on skin color. So we can train empathy. We can train and manipulate people's behavior and attitude towards these things with virtual reality. How cool is that? You don't look like it's cool. It's really cool. It's really freaking amazing. And now this. Everybody try put your hand like this, like he does, or that person does. Put your hand like this, okay? Look at your hand.
Casco de realidad virtual.
Just look at that. I get a sensation. I've tried this. I don't know if you get a sensation of how that would feel while you look at that. That is scary. Yeah, I know. I accidentally let my 4-year-old son see this video, and I shouldn't have done that. My wife was watching, and it went crazy. It wasn't good, but it's only ketchup. I tell you, it's only ketchup. Okay, but the brain believes this is real. Actually, if you get close to simulated or animated fire inside virtual reality, we can measure from biofeedback that you feel the heat. You will feel it's hot because your eyes and your brain believes there's a fire. It's used to the sensation of something being hot, so you'll feel like it's hot. Incredible what the brain can do. Yep. And then there's this. This is cool. So, look at the hand, and that's a saw, right? Yeah, it's not real. So now it's a ball, and he does not care how he puts the ball on top of there, right? Now it's something that looks like a hand, still does not care. Still does not care. Now it's a real hand that you see, and now he's watching his hand, right? Look at this from a health and safety perspective. Can you train behavioral things about health and safety in VR? Absolutely. Does the brain believe it's real? Absolutely. Why are you guys doing compliance trainings in PowerPoints? Can somebody answer that question? I'll ask you later, not now. Yeah. This is so powerful. And research shows that it works. How often do you see that within learning and training? Not a lot. Right, so let's go into what works from a design perspective when it comes to training. Only 2 more minutes, by the way. We're only 2 minutes out. If something is dangerous, expensive, requires muscle memory, that you can remember this with your hands and your legs and your body. If something is difficult to get to, difficult to reach, like offshore, for instance, it's difficult to get out there, or if you need collaboration, VR can make a hell of a lot of sense for training and learning. Definitely, and we've got the research to back it up. You just saw that, right? So I'm not just claiming this. So that's from a health and safety perspective. If you've got procedural tasks that people need to remember, the stuff they assemble, how it fits and stuff, you can't do the tiny bits with the finger, but you don't need it, right? When you get out there offshore, you know what a bolt looks like. You know that you're supposed to take the torque and do that. You don't need the fine mechanics. You just need the procedure. You need to know what to do and recall that. So actually research also shows that when you're in VR and exposed to VR for a couple of hours, 3 or more days later, you will start dreaming very, very heavily. Yeah. So if you want a dream to remember, just go and do some VR. It'll wear off. You have to get used to this technology, and exposure will also get you, the brain gets used to this. But it's very powerful. It goes straight in. But that also calls for ethics, right? You could do some pretty damaging things with VR if you wanted to. That's why kids have to be 13 before they can try it. But these things I would recommend, and now you can see this is really well designed. So if it has to be good design, I had a request from a person saying, can we get a VR learning for our new procurement system? What? You want to put screenshots in VR? No. VR is for an explorative thing. You don't want to be guided. You want to explore. You want to do things. You want to fail. You want to find out how to, imagine pouring out a box of Lego and then, later on, after you have built the thing, tear it down and then build whatever you want to in your mind. You don't want instructions on how to do that. You want to try it out. And we have to trust that people can actually do that. You need to have all the kinesthetics and the senses. You can do that. You need emotions, right? Something that, like the arrow, you'll remember that. I bet you'll remember that when you walk out of here. It has to be fun. I know it's corporate, but it has to be fun. And then you have to be able to fail in there, because we can. Okay? We're done.
Wow, Peter, that was amazing. That was just practically bang on 20 minutes. How many times did you practice that?
0.
Whoa, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. So now it's question and answer time. I was so excited to welcome you all earlier. I forgot to introduce myself. My name's Susan, and I'm the People and Organisation Development Manager here at OGTC. So I'm really interested in learning and development, and I have got some questions for Peter later, but over to you. Rachel's got a microphone there, so if you could raise your hand if you've got a question. There, just behind you, Rachel.
Hello there. Very good presentation. I was just curious about, if you want to implement this, you mentioned some costs in the order of $15,000 and so on. What are the costs involved in developing the environment? I mean, you need to have a 3D model of, let's say, an oil rig with all the fine details. What are the costs of developing those 3D models?
Oh, it varies. It's such a difficult question. I'm not afraid to talk about numbers. It's always like, then I get into a trap here, but it depends. Most of the work we do is actually not modeling the environment. It is managing companies' data. So if you guys have all the models and the step files and the CAD models and all that ready for us, then the cost will be low. And once you've got that modeled in a 3D environment one time, then you can keep reusing it, right? So the cost will just diminish over time. That's a good thing about it, right? And small changes is not a lot. So the first take, when you need to start with this, the cost will be rather high to get your data straight and your models right and get it into the 3D environment. But from there on, it's smooth sailing. So our customers usually spend around 10 to 15,000 pounds to do a prototype. They'll get really far for that amount of money. And then we see them either disappearing or upscaling. And then we're talking in the range of from 50,000 to 100,000 pound investments in training portfolios where they say, this is our strategy to walk this way, to do this. And then we start working with their data. And there's also side effects to that, good side effects. Once you start modeling stuff, really modeling stuff and getting those 3D models right, you can use it other places in the company. Yep. Yeah.
Hi, Peter. Thank you
Hello.
very much. My name is Pamela from the OGTC. I wanted to ask you, with all the various applications for this product, and with Susan listening, is there an application for perhaps mental health and well-being where we could perhaps have a room where we can go on holiday?
Yep.
And have an experience of being on the seaside or something like that?
Heaps of experiences online. If you buy this headset, use this one. And then you can go to the Oculus store. This is about 150 pounds, 180 pounds. Just go and download apps. They're like £5 a piece, and you can travel all over the world. Google Maps is on here. You can take a trip. Yeah, definitely. Actually, when it comes to mental health and anxiety, and also if you injured yourself, right, you need training to get back up to speed. Research shows that it's 40% quicker with some injuries if you use VR to move your leg, for instance. If you think the brain thinks you can move your leg, it'll improve your what's that called, retraining or rehabilitation very much. And speaking about empathy, there's also Red Cross and Human Rights who's done some pretty cool things with empathy, training on how is it like to be a Syrian family in a war zone, stuff like that. Yeah, you can do some pretty powerful stuff. So not only relaxing and all that, but also empathy is a big thing. You do that in companies as well. If you want to train how to fire people, right? You can actually, I know, but you can actually speak to the headset. So that you've got a microphone in here, so you can actually, because when you're in a situation where you need to fire someone, you often say the wrong things, right? And you get out of the room saying, "I was supposed to fire that person, but he just got his contract renewed, and there's and a pay rise." So it's like, what happened? So you can actually train that scenario here, and you can speak to the headset, and the algorithm will then branch you to the video based on what you say. That's quite cool. So you can train stuff like the difficult conversations in this headset as well. Sorry, that was a detour, but
that's a great question, Pamela. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm Bruce Tucker from SDI. I'm kind of interested in which industry segments have the fastest take-up of VR, because we always think oil and gas is really there, but often we are super conservative. So which industry segments are using VR?
Yeah, definitely heavy industry sectors are the main players right now because of the cost you can reduce. Also within marketing, retail, we see a lot of initiatives right now. Robot companies, automation, definitely. But I will challenge you a little bit. I think, yes, you guys are probably conservative, but the oil and gas industry are the ones who are ready to do these things faster than anyone else. Automotive industry as well. I think oil and gas are really, because you're probably a little bit under pressure, right? Then you feel the need to do these things. So budgets are bigger, and it takes a shorter time to get stuff done. So yeah, you're actually pretty well on when it comes to these things. Yeah, good question.
Can I ask a question? Would that be okay? Well, you're all coming up with your amazing next questions. So the reason I got in contact with Peter was there was a great posting on LinkedIn. So what we've seen here are the tools for learning and development, but I was really interested in some of his views on LMS, learning management systems, and e-learning. So probably a lot of us are familiar with e-learning, and we're very familiar with learning management systems. So Peter, do you want to tell us a little bit about your views here?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. E-learning does not work. It doesn't work. Stop doing it. Stop spending budgets on it. Who of you wants to click next? Who of you have got time to sit down for a 45-minute e-learning on something that's not relevant for you right now? Stop doing it. Stop doing what Martin is doing. Making sites with resources, videos, searchable content. Stop making your things searchable in your companies for one. Yeah? And then shut down the LMS. Completion tracking does not say if anyone learned anything at all. It's just a cover my ass activity. Stop doing it. It doesn't make sense. It's a waste of money.
So can I
Sorry?
ask another?
That was out of the box.
On that very mild, neutral tone there, I think have we got Martin? Martin, do you want to maybe introduce yourself, Martin? Maybe tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yes, cheers for putting me on the spot there. No, I've worked in e-learning a long time, and there's nothing worse than hearing the term e-learning itself. It's like swearing at me. Fundamentally, I had a great chat with Peter. I took him to my workplace yesterday, and we got involved in some good chats. And fundamentally, on the way down, we had a lot of speeders going down the road, and we're thinking, if that guy gets caught, he's going to get 3 points in his license, or he gets a choice. he gets to take a course on mandatory training on how to do safer driving, defensive driving. But I don't have to do that course because he made a mistake. Fundamentally, what we're doing in the workplace is we're punishing everyone else for the mistakes that someone else has made. If you make learning more accessible, lighter, and not forcing me to register on a course, it takes 30 minutes of my time that could be better spent resourcing elsewhere. You know, I don't want to have to log in. I forgot my password. I'm not going to do it. Mandatory training in that doesn't work. It really hasn't. And fundamentally, learning has changed so much. I mean, look at the technologies we're using nowadays. Flash is dead. All the e-learnings are getting converted into HTML5. Peter said it there. Click next doesn't work. Click next to continue doesn't work. A drag and drop exercise is not gamification. You know, these are words that are told to sell to us. You know, fundamentally, the best way that we have found in our workplace and environment, if we give people the materials and the resources to learn in an accessible place, they will do the training themselves. We don't have to guide them. We don't have to tell them to do it. We've introduced new technologies and tools. We've pointed them in the right direction and categorized in a simplified manner using a variety of different technologies from either, you know, online text manuals, videos, you name it, is there. And they will just go and find out themselves. And what we find is the adaptation to the tool and the new technologies that they're using is risen massively, you know, like at least 200%. You know, our intranet site went from about 800 hits a month to over 8,000 hits in like 2 to 3 months. So fundamentally, it's working. We're doing something right. We haven't quite worked out what we're doing right, but something's right there. And it's not by, if we fundamentally, I took the axe to the LMS. The corporate's probably going to kick my ass later, but it's working. You know, people are learning. So.
Great. Thank you very much.
Can I add a comment to that as well?
I think you can.
It's just that when we could talk about an LMS and completion tracking, all we want to do is see that people completed something, right? That's the kind of data we can get from that. If we're advanced, we'll go XAPI and then maybe get some, where did people click in this e-learning, which is, it doesn't make any sense. But in VR, we can subtract every kind of data on all your movements. So we can say a person A moved his hand to this place and then to this place and then did that, and we can go back and ghost this and say, what did you do right and wrong? And actually see and make people reflect on data, real data on what they did, which is what we want. We don't want completion tracking or anything else about how they clicked around in an e-learning. It does not make sense for learning. We need to see if people can do what they're supposed to do. And we can actually use this technology to prove it. Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome indeed. And I think we've got time for maybe a couple of awesome last questions. We've got one over here.
Oh, sorry, would you just...
Sarah Hutchins from Dicesource. You've mentioned that we as an industry are starting to look at virtual reality and how we adopt it within the industry. We're still seeing quite a bit of resistance to that. If you were going to tell us one main benefit aside from the cost element, what would you say that when we're going out with VR to the industry to say, this is why we've got to move in this direction, what would you say that one thing is?
Oh, one thing.
One thing.
Limited to one thing. Well, reducing cost is powerful, but the thing is that this technology, with the research I've just shown you, it works. The training, it works. You can change behavior with this. There's no other technology for training and learning or anything else we use in our daily lives that changes behavior as powerful as this technology. That's the one thing. Yeah, but you can actually prove it here, which is different from what else I've seen. So yeah, cool.
Thank you. That was a really awesome question. Yep. If you hold on 1 second, the microphone's just coming your way.
Thank you again. This is Badri here. I didn't introduce myself the previous time. From New York. Great presentation again. So my question is about the long-term benefits. I know you've talked about all the awesome benefits about VR.
Yeah.
I feel that there are possibly certain ill effects of being immersed in a virtual environment for extended periods of time, that you start losing your sense of what is real and what is virtual.
Yeah.
And maybe you will start taking more risks than usual in your real life, which could end up leading to accidents and so forth. What is your take on that?
Good question. Very good question. There's a lot in that question I don't know. I can't answer that. Nobody knows because there's not been enough research on it. But I can tell you that VR, this is the third or fourth iteration of VR. We've seen it come up a couple of times. VR was invented in the late 70s, and there's been, the armed forces has used this forever in their simulation training. And if there's one thing you don't want in the armed forces is people to take unnecessary chances, right? Just running around shooting things because they can, or pulling the trigger in the airplane, dropping bombs all over, right? So the research from the armed forces on using these technologies shows that that does not happen over time. But we're also talking about a group of people, very skilled professional soldiers, who's maybe not very, representative to the common man or the common technician or whomever. So I would say we know that it does not happen within the industries that VR has been present in forever, or the 40 years. But we don't know what will happen when we scale this out corporately. But I do know there's a lot of research going on all over the world on the effects of this. But long term, this is still new. Yeah, good question.
I think we've got time for maybe one last question. Any burning questions? No? Okay, I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves this afternoon. I hope you've learned something. If you'd like to try out some of Peter's great kits, if you can go upstairs, we're just going to be clearing the room at 1:30. So if you want to carry on your conversations, try out some of the kit, please join us upstairs in the TechX Lounge. And I'd just like to ask you all to clap, hopefully, and thank Peter for his time.